Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How's everyone doing?
وعليكم السلام.
Walaikum salam, Sheikh.
Good to see you, Samir.
Salam.
Good to see you. MashaAllah, Muhammad Yassin. Yabirkiya.
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh. Good.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Allah, welcome. Ali, Matthew, Mona, Rafiq, MashaAllah, welcome. Yusuf, Ahlan. Are you calling in from Hawaii, Yusuf?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Sorry, I just got cut off. I didn't hear the first part.
Are you calling in from Hawaii, I said.
No, I'm calling in from Sacramento, California.
MashaAllah. How's your health? Your voice sounds
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
sick.
under the weather a little bit.
SubhanAllah. But that does not sound like Yusuf. But then I said it sounds like Yusuf with a gruffy voice. MashaAllah. Shafaakallah.
Ameen,
Shafaakallah.
inshallah. Ajmain.
Ameen. All right, we'll go ahead and get started, inshallah. Go ahead and get started. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك عليه وعلى آله صلاة تخرجنا بها من ظلمات الوهم وتكرمنا بها بنور الفهم وتوضح بها عما أشكل حتى يفهم أنك تعلم ولا نعلم وأنت علام الغيوب ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ومن يعتصم بالله فقد هدي إلى صراط مستقيم. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا الله وإياكم ببركاته. كتاب الصلاة. The author starts off today with the book of Salah. As we said, the book Ibn Ashir, this book Ibn Ashir that we have with us, whichever copy you have, is divided into three sections mainly. That's a section on Aqidah, a section on Fiqh, and a section on Tasawwuf at the end, because Tasawwuf is the thamara, or the fruit of Fiqh. Your spiritual connection with Allah is the fruit of your worship being in line with the revelation of Allah. And the section on Aqidah precedes the section on Fiqh because your worship is not correct, is not valid unless you have the right belief. So this is the reasoning of the ordering of the book. And then within the book of Fiqh, we have mainly, strictly, you could say, four sections. That is the section on Salah, the section on zakat, the section on Siyam, and the section on hajj. Okay? Now, Ibn Ashir and many of the A'immah, dating back to Imam Malik in his Muwatta, they separate out a section on Tahara. We call it Kitab al-Tahara. Because even though the section on Tahara is actually, should, strictly speaking, is a part of the section on Salah, it's a condition of the Salah. Strictly speaking, Tahara, purification, is a part of the Salah and a condition of the Salah because of its length. It's such a long section. Look, until now, we've only been doing Tahara, which is about 2 months, right? We've only been doing Tahara. Because it's such a long section, he separates it out into another, its own book called the Kitab of Tahara. Okay, and by here book we don't mean book as we use in the contemporary English sense, but book in the sense of the highest level of organization, okay, in a text. Any questions so far there? Okay. Salah, linguistically, it comes from the word dua. It comes from the word supplication. And Qadi Iyad says that this was common practice among the Arabs before Islam to call dua salah. Okay? To mean by salah, dua, calling upon Allah. And so Allah would when He revealed the Sharia through the Prophet ﷺ, it was revealed and it expanded upon this concept of dua and added words and added actions. It is also said that salah comes from sila, which means connection. And it is for this reason, well, regardless if you take the meaning of dua or connection, it is for this reason that it is core to the Islamic practice. It is core to the Islamic practice. It is the connection between you and Allah. And it is for this reason the Prophet ﷺ said, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ قُرَّةَ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ. That Allah created, there's an idiomatic expression, the apple of my eyes. Similar expression to that in Arabic is قُرَّةَ عَيْن. قُرَّةَ عَيْن, right? The jewel of my eyes, the apple of my eyes. The Prophet ﷺ said it was created for him in salah. It was created for him in salah. And Al-Hakim al-Tirmidhi, he comments on this and he says that, notice he said in salah and not through the salah. That is, when you enter the salah, you're entering the house of Allah. You're entering the house of Allah, the metaphysical house of Allah. Whether or not you physically enter the house, which is a masjid, and that's why it's sunnah to pray in the masjid. But even if you're not physically entering a house, you're metaphysically entering the house with your heart. You break away from the hustle and bustle of this world, from your busy life, from all the messages that are constantly coming at you now. Now, even when you break away from people, you're still getting messages on your phone, non-stop. But the salah creates this barrier between you and the rest of the world. And you make your own place, even physically, where no one should pass through, right? As we'll read about the place between you and the place of your sujud, no one should pass through that. And as you make this physical place and enter this metaphysical house, your heart finds peace in submitting to Allah, but only if you fully submit with your heart. That's why Imam al-Akhdari, he says, لِلصَّلَاةِ نُورٌ عَظِيمٌ تُشْرِقُ بِهِ قُلُوبُ الْمُصَلِّينَ وَلَا يَنَالُهُ إِلَّا الْخَاشِعُونَ. That the salah has a great light, a light in which you will find happiness, a light in which you will find peace, but only if there is khushu' in the heart and submission from the heart. It's as if we are the slaves of Allah, and you think back to the times when there was slavery, right? And not American slavery, which is a brutal kind of slavery, but the slavery that kind of existed in the Muslim world, and even outside the Muslim world in some aspects. There were slaves there who found peace in their slavery. In fact, even rose to the top levels of society and government despite being slaves. And many of our greatest ulama, especially in the first generation, you notice, like Nafi', who is without Nafi', there would be no Maliki madhab, and he was a teacher of Imam Malik, and one time he was a slave. But these slaves, they found peace in where they were. And they weren't slaves that were constantly trying to run away and break away from the situation they were in. And similarly, if we make that analogy to us in salah, the people who come to salah looking for peace, looking for the happiness, and looking to rise to the highest ranks within the salah, those are the slaves that will find peace with Allah. Whereas the slaves who are constantly trying to run away, they come to the salah, but only because they have to. only because the time is ending, and if you don't pray salah right now, then the time ended. And you only make 3 or 4 minutes, and as soon as the salah is done, you pick up your phone and you start checking your messages and scrolling through your messages. Somebody said this. That's the slave who's constantly trying to run away. And that kind of slave, in the salah, they're not going to find any happiness. They're not going to find any peace. And that's why Allah says in the Quran, وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ, that it is a kabira, it is heavy. It is heavy on everyone except the khashi'in, except those who submit themselves with their heart. Okay? And you find in this many, many stories, both historical and contemporary. A historical story is a story of Zayn al-Abidin that we narrated before, that there was one time he was caught in a battle. He was caught in a battle. And somebody shot an arrow into his shoulder. An arrow into his shoulder. They didn't have anesthesia. So they said, how will we take this out? Let's tie him down tie him down and then we'll take it out. Because it's so painful to pull out an arrow without anesthesia. And at that time, they already did have kinds of local and general anesthesia, but they didn't have that with them at the time. So they said, how will we do it? Tie him down physically. And Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he said, no, you don't need to tie me down physically. Allow me to make wudu, and I'm going to enter into prayer. And as soon as he entered into prayer, they pulled out the arrow and he didn't even flinch, because he had entered the house of Allah with his ruh, even if not physically. So this, understanding the fiqh of it will not automatically get you there, but it is a prerequisite to getting there. Okay? So he says, Salah is Fara'id al-Salati 16. Fara'id al-Salati 16. That the Fara'id of the Salah is the Fara'id of the Salah is 16. شروطها أربعة مفتقرة. شروطها أربعة مفتقرة. And its conditions are 4. Now, one thing that should be noted here is that he mentions conditions, even though he does not speak about the conditions here, he speaks about them later. Okay? And the reason perhaps he speaks about the conditions later is because some of the conditions can be broken, even though, intellectually speaking, you would put the conditions first, right? You would put the conditions first, and not because they're the conditions of prayer, just like he puts the condition which is purification, right? Tahara is a condition, and he talked about that extensively in a book before the salah. So likewise, he should put the conditions before. And perhaps he put the conditions later. Perhaps the reasoning for putting the conditions later is because some of the conditions can be broken and the salah is still valid. Whereas the salah cannot be valid while missing a fard from the salah. Does that make sense? So the question is, why does he put the conditions later? The rest of the conditions he mentions in line 105 onwards. When he mentioned already the condition for purification before in an entire book, and on top of that, intellectually speaking, makes sense. Before you mention something, you mention the conditions in it. Before you start racing, the person mentions the conditions of the race, right? Before you take a job, the people mention the conditions of the job. And the answer perhaps is that some of the conditions can be broken, but the fara'id cannot be broken, and in order to have a valid salah. That makes sense? Any questions so far? Everyone still awake? All right. Alhamdulillah. All right. MashaAllah. Excellent. Okay. So what are these 16 fara'id? And salah, like every ibadah, has fara'id, it has sunan, and it has, in the sunnahs, it has sunnah mu'akkada and a sunnah, emphasized sunnahs and normal sunnahs. The fara'id is the plural of fard, which means critical elements, you could say. Then you have, after it, recommended elements, and it has things that if you include in it are makruh or disliked, and things if you include in it are haram, and things that break it as well. All right, so first he starts off with the fara'id. He says, what's the first fard? Takbiratul ihram. وَالْقِيَامُ لَهَا وَنِيَّةٌ بِهَا تُرَامُ. This is line number 100. You're following along in this translation. I don't know how we can get this to show up. You see that? That translation, line number 100. He says, Takbiratul ihrami wal qiyamu laha wa niyyatun biha turamu. The saying of Allahu Akbar, its sanctity, Takbiratul ihram. The translation is kind of funny, but the takbir of sanctification, you could say, wal qiyam, the standing, wa niyyah, and the intention. And in fact, the order is kind of flipped here because the first thing is niyyah. The first thing is niyyah. Or you could say he's trying to emphasize that you make the niyyah along with the takbir. Okay? The takbir is quite straightforward. You say Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. And everyone must say this. And tajweed mistakes here, most tajweed mistakes would break your saying of Allahu Akbar. And in Khalil, he gives some examples of that. For example, if you say, if you said Allah and you paused, and then you said Akbar, it would not count. Your entire salah would be invalid. If you said something else like Allah Azim, Allah Kabir, maybe there's a new Muslim and they have a hard time saying Allahu Akbar. So you tell them, you know what, just say Allah Kabir or Allah Azim. You know, it's almost the same meaning. It's another name of Allah. It's okay. Allah Azim. No, it would not count. Okay? Now, if someone truly cannot say Allahu Akbar because they're a new Muslim and there's not enough time to properly teach them before praying, and they cannot pray behind someone else, then it's forgiven. They just simply don't say anything. Okay? This is takbir, Allahu Akbar. Also, this takbir is separate, should be thought of separately from the raising of the hands. Oftentimes when we think takbirat al-ihram, we think, okay, Allahu Akbar with the raising of the hand. No, this is something different. The raising of the hands, it will be mentioned in the mustahabbat, okay? In the mustahabbat. But كَرَفْعِ يَدَيْهِ مَعْ إِحْرَامِهِ حِينَ شُرُوعِهِ. That's in the mustahabbat. But the actual Allahu Akbar, that is what is a fard. Okay? Let's see. Any questions so far? All right. Rafiq is my temp check. Jazakallah khair, brother Rafiq. He says good. All right. Kabir says good. All right. So you say Allahu Akbar, raising of the hand we'll get to later. And along with the saying of takbir, from the very beginning or even slightly preceding it, you must have the niyyah in your hand, in your heart. You must have the niyyah in your heart. Okay? There's no need to say it out loud, and in fact, saying it out loud according to the Maliki madhab is makruh. To say, I'm going to pray Dhuhr Salah, Allahu Akbar. No, you don't need to say that. As long as in your heart, you know you're going to pray Dhuhr Salah, that's the niyyah, that's it. Okay? Unlike, I believe, the Shafi'i madhab, and maybe the Hanafis as well. But the Shafi'is, I think they actually say that you must say it out loud to some extent, or it's at least a sunnah. In any case, in your heart, Allahu Akbar, you have the niyyah. What niyyah is it? What niyyah is it? Simply the niyyah for the salah that you're going to pray. And this niyyah is absolutely necessary for the fard salahs and for the sunnah mu'akkada salahs. Okay? For the fard salahs, which is the 5 daily prayers, and the sunnah mu'akkada prayers, which we will talk about later, Ibn Ashir will talk about, like witr or like Eid, you must have this niyyah. But other than that, you don't need a niyyah, okay? So you can launch right into a nafil prayer. You don't need a niyyah that, I'm going to pray nafil prayer. No, just launch right into the nafil prayer, okay? You don't need to specify the number of rak'ahs. You don't need to say, I'm going to pray 4 rak'ahs. I'm going to pray Dhuhr 4 rak'ahs. You don't need to specify whether you're a traveler or staying. You don't need to specify whether you're praying within time or after time, okay? Just niyyat al-Dhuhr, niyyat al-Asr, niyyat al-Maghrib, in your heart. And it can be in English, Dhuhr. That's it, in your heart, okay? All right. Then he says, وَالْقِيَامُ لَهَا, standing for it. Standing for what? This is actually incorrect in the translation. It says the standing for the salah, but it should be the standing for the takbir. Okay? The standing for the takbir. قِيَامُ لَهَا. That is a fard. As it says in Khalil, تكبيرة الإحرام وقيام لها إلا لمسبوق فتأويلان وإنما يجزئ الله أكبر فإن عليه صفا. That the standing for the takbir is important. Now you might say, when will I not stand for takbir? Let me give you some examples. Maybe you're hurt or you're elderly and you can stand. You can stand. Maybe for a minute, maximum. But you think, this imam, I'm going to pray in this masjid, this imam, man, he's always reading Surah Al-Baqarah in the entire prayer. This guy's going to take like an hour for the Aisha prayer. So you know what? I'll just sit from now. And so you just sit and you say Allahu Akbar. No, that is incorrect. That is incorrect. That is incorrect, okay? You should stand up, make the intention, say Allahu Akbar while standing up, stand as long as you can. If you can, stand for the Fatiha as well. Okay, that is also a wajib, as we'll see. And then you can sit down once the imam starts his surah, okay? Once he launches into Surah Al-Baqarah, okay? Then you can sit down. But up till then, standing is obligatory. And standing is obligatory for the takbir as well. All right? Now, continuing. Another situation where you might run into this. You see the imam in ruku'. All right? As soon as everyone sees the imam goes into ruku', they all start running. Now it's like a marathon. Start running, or I should say 100-meter dash. And you're dashing over, and you say Allahu Akbar, and you go straight. While you're saying Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, and go straight into ruku'. This is not correct either. This is not correct either. Though on the stronger opinion, your prayer would still be valid. Okay? إلا لمسبوق فتأويلان. Your prayer would still be valid as long as you made that intention for Takbirat al-ihram. But the correct thing to do is to stand Allahu Akbar and then say another takbir to go into ruku'. Allahu Akbar. Okay? Rafiq, you say it's separate, correct? Takbir in the salah. The takbir is a part of the salah. Okay, the takbir is the first, or you could say the second farad of the salah. Any questions so far? The intention. The intention is also a part of the salah. Okay, you're making the intention for the salah.
Salam, Sayyidi. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I had a quick
Ahlan,
question
ahlan,
regarding.
Allah.
I had a quick question regarding the Niyyah. So, like in terms of like I know you said it's to say it out loud. It's a makruh. But in terms of like if you have children behind you and you are saying it out loud to teach them, and so is it still makruh? And also, what would be the recommendation? Because sometimes like they don't know what salah they're doing. So is it okay to say like we are praying salah like for Salatul Isha, for Raka, or how should we I could teach to the kids, I guess?
That's a good point. Well, if you need to talk during the salah, then obviously you can't do a normal salah. So you can teach them as a demonstration, like kind of a demonstrative salah. It's not a real salah, a demonstrative salah. And if you're talking before the salah, then just tell them, yeah, that's okay. To tell them, yeah, we are going to pray Isha. Okay, guys, we're going to pray Isha. What prayer are we praying? Isha. Okay. And then you make the intention in your heart and pray Isha. So that doesn't have to count as part of the actual intention for the prayer, right? Does that make sense?
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Rafiq, your question was answered? Okay, alhamdulillah. All right, so then he says, Fatihatun ma'al qiyami. So the next fard is reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, the entire thing, in every single rak'ah is a fard, okay? The entire thing. While standing up, which is also why we said, maybe you're an elderly person, maybe you're sick, maybe you broke your leg, maybe the imam is going to recite Surah Al-Baqarah, and nobody can stand for that one. In one rak'ah, at least, I think many people would have trouble for that one. But regardless, you should stand for the Fatiha. That's a fard. Okay? Standing for the surah is not a fard. That's a sunnah. So he says, وَفَاتِحَةٌ بِحَرَكَةِ لِسَانٍ. That the Fatiha, you must recite it. When we're talking about recitation, the minimum recitation is to recite with your tongue, moving your tongue. Okay? Maybe you can still hear something. That's just because I'm wearing AirPods. But most people, they would not be able to hear anything there, right? So that's the minimum recitation. You can't close your mouth. You're gonna somebody says, hey, aren't you going to recite anything? No, I am reciting. I'm just, you can't see me. I'm reciting in my head. No, reciting in your head does not count as recitation. Okay? Okay. Alrighty. وَالرُّكُوعُ وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ وَالرُّكُوعُ وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ. Going to the ruku' and standing up from it. Both of these are fard. Even the standing up. So you can't go into your ruku' and say, you know what, I'm just going to shortcut this. Why should I stand up and then go into sujood? Just go directly into sujood. No, you can't do that. Because the getting up from the ruku' is also a fard. Kabir asks, is the outward recitation for those following behind an imam as well? No, it's not. And we're going to get into following, there's a section here. Makruh acts of salah, qada, prostration for forgetfulness, governing Jum'ah. Yeah, shurutul imam. But it's not. Okay, in short, it's not. We'll get to that, inshallah. All right. So, وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ وَالسُّجُودُ. So, and the sujood. So one thing about the ruku', what counts as a minimum ruku'? The correct ruku' to do, I'll see if you guys can see this. The correct ruku' to do is to have a straight back. Okay? My back as straight as I can make it. Your back should be straight. That's the correct ruku' to do. Okay? If you can't do that, then the minimum is enough such that if your hands were fully out, they'll be very close to your knee, which is about this height. This counts as a ruku'. It counts as a ruku'. وَرُكُوعٌ تَقْرُبُ رَاحَتَاهُ مِنْ رُكْبَتَيْهِ رَاحَتَاهُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُكْبَتَيْهِ. That's it. That counts as a minimum fard ruku'. As for the sujood, the fard is that at least your forehead must be planted on the ground. Your forehead must be planted on the ground. That's the minimum. Okay? Nothing else is considered a fard. Not your nose, not your hands, not your feet. At least your forehead, though, must be planted on the ground. So technically, even your knees can be in the air, which is interesting because many other religions have this kind of, if you consider this minimum sajda, many other religions have this sajda as well. This minimum sajda, which is putting the forehead on the ground, including some Eastern religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, and such. So let's get to some questions. Do the legs need to be full straight? That's the mandub, okay? I'm just talking about the fard here, but the mandub is yes, the legs need to be fully straight. Though you can also, some ulama, like Imam al-Rahuni, he also said you can put a little bit out. It's very hard to see in my thobe. Let me see if I can lower this now. Okay. It's still very hard to see in my thobe, I think. But it can be slightly out, but not too out, okay? And the hands, can you all see this? Your palms on the kneecaps. Your palms on the kneecaps. That's the mustahab. Okay? Your fingers spread out slightly. And the knees are either fully straight or very, very ever so slightly bent out. Less than actually the Hanafis bend out. But ever so slightly. Okay? It says here, Matthew, it's if you intend the wrong prayer, you should abandon the prayer and start over with the right intention. How do you abandon prayer already begun? Do you do the taslim? Yes, you don't have to do the taslim. You can simply end the prayer with your heart. I'm not praying anymore. Okay? And then you do the new takbir. All right. Then he says, وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ وَالسَّلَامُ وَالسُّجُودُ بِالْخُضُوعِ. As we said, only the forehead needs to be on the ground, only the forehead. The rest is a sunnah. Okay, the nose is a sunnah. وَسُنَّ عَلَى أَطْرَافِ قَدَمَيْهِ وَرُكْبَتَيْهِ كَيَدَيْهِ عَلى الْأَصَحِّ وَعَادَ لِتَرْكِ أَنْفٍ بِوَقْتٍ. But you should place your nose because some ulama in the madhab said that it's fard. So you should place your nose, okay? And the rest is a sunnah, so you should do that as well. But for some reason, if you can't, there's no issue. The rest, I mean the knees, the hands, the feet, and that's it. Okay? Okay. Then he says, وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ, likewise getting up from the sujood, that's a fard. وَالسَّلَامُ, saying the salam. And this salam, in the Maliki madhab, the only fard, and actually in all the madhab, the only fard is the first salam. The only fard is to say, Assalamu alaykum. Okay? Assalamu alaykum. That's it. You don't need to say more than that. You don't need to say Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. You don't need to say Assalam to both sides. The only fard is Assalamu alaykum. We're going to get to the other salam as well. There's two other salams actually in the madhab. One to the imam, one to the congregant on the left side. But the only fard is the one to the right. Assalamu alaykum. And even that turning to the right is not necessary, but it's simply intended to the one on the right, okay? Assalamu alaykum. It must be said as Assalamu alaykum. All right? You cannot say Salamun alaykum. If you're a Desi, you cannot say Salaam alaykum. You cannot say Alaykum assalam. No, you must say Assalamu alaykum. And there's a very strong, besides the amal of Medina, there's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, I believe, by Aisha radiallahu anha, that when the Prophet ﷺ used to exit the prayer, he said one salam to the right. كان يسلم تسليمة واحدة to the right. Okay? So that's the amal with which we base the madhab on. Go ahead, Amin.
Yeah, I had a question on the salam. So I was one time praying Zaytuna behind Hamza Yusuf, and he really emphasized on the salam, like it was like he said Assalamu alaikum, like they're pretty, I wouldn't say harsh, but like really loud. Is that also needed as well? But the reason I'm asking is it was powerful that just because I never heard that type of the way it was said before, but I was just wondering if there's anything around that.
There is, so in the aspect of, you do say Assalamu alaikum, so the imam turns on, the imam and the one who's praying individually, they turn on the kum. Assalamu alaikum. Now, I noticed that even I emphasize on the kum, and I'm not sure if there's any strict ruling behind that, but it is something, especially in Tayba, where I know Shaykh Hamza as well, he studied, right? They would say the salam like that and say it very loudly to the right. They would also make the takbirs very loud, especially the opening takbir. They would say Allahu Akbar. And that's just simply, so yeah, that was the practice in Tayba. And it's not a practice among other Malikis necessarily. And it's probably just something Shaykh Hamza picked up there, and I picked up as well. And you're right, it is very powerful. And one thing I've heard, I mean, this is kind of tangentially a story, is that they used to do the wife of Marabat al-Hajj, Maryam, Sayyidah Maryam, she wanted to pray in Jama'ah with Marabat, and she wanted to pray in Jama'ah with the congregation. Now the masjid was a little bit a ways. If you visit Tayba, it's not too far. It's maybe like the house in Marabat and the masjid is right next to it, but it's like a good gap. Maybe I would say 100 feet or 200 feet between the fence of their house to the masjid. So maybe from building to building, maybe 300 feet. And they're praying either inside the building or beyond the building. And so what Muhammad al-Hajj, out of, again, love for his wife and wanting to fulfill her request, he used to say the takbirat and the salam very loudly. He used to say them very loudly so that you can hear all the way from the house And she, Maryam, used to pray from the house with the congregation. And so that kind of became a practice in Imarat, like to say these takbirs very loudly. And it continued even when I was there. They would say the takbirat very loudly. It's not necessarily something I've seen from other Malikis, but that's maybe even one reason that the kum is very loud.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. That was really good. Thank you.
Okay, so then he continues and he says, any other questions? Let's see here. Does the congregation wait for the imam to complete saying salam and then say it after he has finished? Or should they say it at the same time? They should wait for the imam. They should wait for the imam. He's going to get to that right here, actually. He says, yeah, he's going to get to it. Next slide, 103. So, وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ وَالسَّلَامُ وَالْجُلُوسُ لَهُ وَتَرْتِيبُ آدَاءٍ فِي الْأُسُوسِ. So he says, وَالرَّفْعُ مِنْهُ. Yeah, we talked about that. وَالسَّلَامُ, we talked about that. جُلُوسُ لَهُ. So doing that, sitting for the salam, that is a fard. The length that it takes to say the salam, that's a fard. Okay? So even if you skip the tashahhud, you have skipped the sunnah. We're going to talk about the hukm of that. It's not, it's makruh to do, right? You've skipped the sunnah, but as long as you sit for the salam and you say assalamu alaikum, your prayer is valid. Okay? So you can't say salam from like the sujud position. You can't say it standing up. You must say it from the sitting position. وَتَرْتِيبُ آدَاءٍ فِي الْأُسُوسِ. The order of the fard. And that's the order that everyone knows, you know, standing up first, ruku', then getting up, then sujud, then getting up, and then finally the salam and sitting at the very end, right? If anyone needs to go over that, I'm happy to go over it. But that's the order, classic order that everyone knows. وَالْإِعْتِدَالُ, standing straight. Standing straight. Okay? Standing straight. Again, the translation is a little funky here. 103, standing straight for a moment while relaxing at the same time. I would actually say it's standing straight, mutma'innan. I would drop the for a moment, okay? Perhaps you could say for a moment while relaxing. Because these are two separate fards, okay? I'tidal, standing straight. So, for example, and you actually see this in, for example, Taraweeh. People do the ruku', they get up from the ruku', and, you know, they're waiting for the imam to go into sujud. So they don't even get up all the way. Maybe you can see I'm actually tilted over a bit, okay? They don't even get up all the way. So they're just standing like this. They're as if they're hunched, ready to jump into the sujud. That, they actually missed one of the fards. And that fard is standing straight, okay? Now let's say they stood straight, okay? The imam, we assume the imam was doing everything correctly. They said Allah, Sami Allah liman hamida. They go to sujud. But what does the congregant do? What does the follower do? He says, you know, I'm not going to stand straight for that long. I'm just going to say, Sami Allah liman hamida, Allahu Akbar. It's like you just, Allahu Akbar, you just, you know, it's some kind of dance or something. You just stand here for not even a second and you go directly into the sujood. That is incorrect. That is breaking the fard. What fard is that breaking? It's breaking the fard of tuma'nina. It's breaking the fard of tuma'nina. The fard of, you could say, relaxation. The fard of calmness, stillness. Okay? As we said, the prayer is entering into the gardens of Allah, the house of Allah. And the heart is the one that enters. And then it commands the limbs to enter with it. It commands the limbs to enter with it. And so when you're not standing still, this lack of stillness, number one, it affects the heart's ability to enter. And number two, it shows that your heart does not have command over the limbs and cannot submit them to Allah, right? And so this stillness is a core part of the prayer as well. It's a fard. We'll do two more and then we'll stop, inshallah. It says, تَابَعَ مَأْمُومٌ بِإِحْرَامٍ سَلَامٍ. Those are all the fara'id, okay? That should be 16. Anyone want to count them up? تكبيرة الإحرام، قيام لها، نية، فاتحة، قيام لها، ركوع، رفع منه، سجود، رفع منه، سلام، جلوس له، ترتيب أداء، اعتدال، طمأنينة. That's actually 14. And 14 is what Akhtari mentions. By 16, he's adding something here. At 16, he's adding something. Perhaps he's adding 2 sujood. Perhaps he's adding the first sujood and the second sujood. Okay, because they're both fard. And the getting up from both of them. That would bring it to 16. Wallahu a'lam. Let me know if anyone confirms that answer or finds the answer to the puzzle. Standing for takbir and Fatiha. I added those already. Muhammad Yasin. But I still got 14. Okay. In any case, 14, 16. 14 is the amount that Akhtari mentions, and it is all the fara'id, okay? Then he says, تَابَعَ مَأْمُومٌ بِإِحْرَامٍ سَلَامٍ. And Mona, this gets to your question, which is that the follower, this is extremely important and very not known, okay? This is something so big that it could literally, the salah itself could be invalid. And what is that thing? That thing is that one must follow after the imam. One must follow after the imam in both the takbir and the salam. So after the imam says Allahu Akbar, then you say Allahu Akbar. Okay? And if one were to finish, or to say at the same time, either Allahu Akbar or Assalamu Alaikum, the prayer would be invalid. So for example, if the imam said, the imam was saying it long, you're saying Allahu Akbar, and you just said Allahu Akbar, and you entered the prayer. And I have seen that, subhanAllah, many people do that. Or similarly for the salam, the imam says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then you just say Assalamu alaikum. That would make your entire prayer invalid. Okay, if you finish before the imam. If you finish before the imam. However, if you start before the imam and you finish after the imam, then it would not be invalid, but it would be haram to do, I believe. I'm just checking. وبطلت باقتداء بمن I will check this and let y'all know. But in any case, وجاز إقدام. In any case, one should do it after the imam, okay? And likewise, the imam should make the salam and make the takbir, they should make them quick. Not overly quick, but not so slow that somebody is going to fall into this, right? Here we go. إحرام وسلام وإن بي أي مع شك منهما في المأمومة لكن في الشك إنما تبطل على السابق بخلاف الشك في الفردية والإمام قبله وعلى الراجح إن ختم معه أو بعده وكذا إن بدأ الإمام قبله. So, just there's a lot of details on, and maybe you can make a chart of these details on if you start before the Imam or if you start after the Imam. Safest thing to do, wait for the Imam to finish Allahu Akbar, and then you say Allahu Akbar. Wait for the Imam to finish Assalamu alaikum, and then you say Assalamu alaikum. Okay? Otherwise, your entire prayer is at risk of being invalid. Okay? Finally, on line 104, he says, نية اقتداء كذا الإمام في خوف وجمع جمعة مستخلفي, that if you want the reward of praying behind an imam and praying in congregation, then that intention must be at the very, very beginning, right? That intention must be at the very, very beginning. If you make the intention, subhanAllah, I saw this once. You can't make the intention to follow someone after starting the prayer. Okay? So I saw one time on my local masjid, I saw two brothers. One brother had started the prayer. Another brother, he came and he joined the prayer. He came and he joined the prayer. And it was as if he was trying to follow the first brother in the prayer, but the first brother did not want to be followed. So what did the second brother do? Who came and joined the prayer? He started praying on his own. Then the second brother started following the first brother in the prayer. It was an absolute comedy show. And no one knew who was the imam. By the time they finished, they started turning and asking each other, who was the imam? You're the imam, I'm the imam. All invalid, in the sense of the prayer itself actually could be valid. The prayer could be valid, but one was not following the other. Okay? One was not following the other. If you want the reward for congregation and to be following an imam, it must be at the beginning. Okay? That's what Imam al-Bannani says. That's what is meant by niyyah iqtida'in, that the niyyah of following must be at the beginning. كَذَا الْإِمَامُ فِي خَوْفٍ وَجَمْعٍ جُمْعَةٍ مُسْتَخْلَفٍ. Most of the time, the imam does not need to make the intention to be an imam. Okay? They don't need to make that intention, except in 4 cases. Salatul Khawf, which we will talk about, perhaps. It's not very important unless you're going to go do jihad. Okay? It's not important for us to know at this stage, unless you're going to go do jihad. Salatul Khawf. Salatul Jama', that is combining the 2 prayers. We're going to talk about that later when there's rain. Okay? And there's rules and conditions to that. It's not just any prayer you can combine. Jum'ah, the imam in Jum'ah, he must have a niyyah that he's leading. And mustakhlaf, the imam, sometimes the imam, their wudu breaks or their salah becomes invalid, and they appoint someone behind them. That person they appointed must have the intention to become the imam. Okay? Only then do they count as an imam. So we'll stop there for today. The rest of the imams, they don't need to have an intention from the beginning to have the imam, like the standard imam. They don't need to have that intention. Stop there for today. Let me answer any questions. Does the congregation wait for imam to say, I see what's edited, and then say the salam, or they say the salam after him, and then wait for the second salam, and say the second after him too? I ask because I don't pray in Saudi, we see people doing so many variations. So, mashallah, it's good to see someone joining from Saudi. Definitely, there's many Maliki shuyukh out there, so definitely pay them a visit if you're able to. We were just in Ahsa, the eastern region of Saudi. And there's many, many ulama there. Actually, all 4 madhabs there. MashaAllah. So there's many teachers there, even women teachers. My wife is studying with one of them. The most, subhanAllah, the most knowledgeable women I have seen by far, or I've even heard from by far. In any case, that being said, in terms of answering your direct question and saying the salam, you must say the salam after. The technical rule is you must say the salam after the imam has exited the prayer according to their madhab. According to their madhab. So for example, in the Maliki madhab, straightforward, after they say this first salam, you say the salam right after. Okay? In the other madhab, I'm not familiar with the rules of every madhab in terms of when it technically counts as they have exited the prayer. So the safest thing to do is just wait until they do both salams and then do the salam. Okay? Oh, Saudi is the only place. Okay. Alhamdulillah. I'm not getting the point on having intention before the prayer for imamah. So yes, Muhammad Yasin, having the intention before the prayer for imamah. Basically, the question is, does the imam need to intend that they're going to be the imam or not? Or is it enough for them to just intend that they're going to pray? The answer is that in most prayers, they don't need to have that intention that they're going to be the imam. In most prayers. So for example, you're praying Dhuhr. Where did you say you were again? Nagapatnam? You're praying Dhuhr in Nagapatnam, okay? I happen to be visiting, and I see, MashaAllah, Muhammad Yasin's praying. Let me go pray with him. So I come over and I start praying next to you. Did you have the intention to be imam before you started praying Dhuhr? No, you didn't have the intention. But is it okay for you to be the imam? Yes, it is. Because it's not required. Except in 4 scenarios, which we talked about. One of them, maybe the most popular that most of us encounter, is Jum'ah. In Jum'ah, the person must have the intention that they're imam. Why? Because the Jum'ah is not valid with just one person. Okay, we're going to talk about Jum'ah later. But you can't have a one-person Jum'ah. You can have a one-person Dhuhr. You can have a one-person Asr. But you can't have a one-person Jum'ah. Okay? So therefore, the imam in Jum'ah needs to have the intention that I am praying, I am leading the Jum'ah. Hopefully that answers the question, inshallah. Kabir says, so if the imam doesn't need niyyah and is on the follower to intend to follow a salah, what does the follower do if they come upon someone praying that doesn't want to be followed? To intend about, what does the follower do if they come upon someone praying? If they don't want to be followed, then khalas, don't follow them, I think. I mean, most Muslims, the only reason they would not want to be followed is because they know that they're praying a different prayer. They know, for example, they're praying sunnah, and somebody comes and tries to join them for dhuhr or something, right? And so they try to move away and try to indicate that, no, I'm not praying dhuhr, go pray your own prayer, right? And this is a rule, actually, that you should know, especially in the Maliki madhab, that and it might be more relaxed for the Shafi'is, but just keep this rule. If you don't know what the prayer the person is praying, don't join them. If you don't know what prayer the person is praying, don't join them. A lot of people who are, very eager to join the jama'ah, they just see some jama'ah and they just go and join them. Especially when it's not clear. Maybe that person is praying Asr and you need to pray Dhuhr. As you said, in the situation of travelers, that person might be praying Isha, you need to pray Maghrib. Okay, if it's not clear, wait until it's clear, or just don't join them. Because in most cases, it is not permissible to join the prayer if you don't know what prayer that imam is praying. Okay? The only case that it is permissible is if you don't know whether they're praying a traveler's prayer or a resident prayer. Then وَجَازَ لَهُ دُخُولٌ عَلَى مَا أَحْرَمَ بِهِ الْإِمَامُ, as it says in Khalil, that you can join the imam and just whatever, whether they're praying the travelers or the resident's prayer, you can just intend to join whatever they're praying. Okay? But in most cases, wait until it's clear or don't join them. Rafiq says the followers should never utter the Takbirat al-ihram. No, the followers should utter the Takbirat al-ihram. They must. They must say Allahu Akbar. The follower must intend the same salah as the imam and follow him. Yes, that is right.
We also have a follow-up question regarding the follower. So, what about the rest of, like, Sami Allahu Hamida? If you're behind the imam, should you say it out loud or should you say it, like, silently?
We'll get to that, inshallah.
Okay.
We'll get to that, inshallah. Yeah. The
Okay,
imam situation. All we took today was the fard of prayer.
Okay, inshallah.
All right. Should the niyyah be the same for the imam and the follower? Like fard for fard? Yes, it should be. It should be the same. So you can't pray a sunnah prayer behind a fard prayer. You could pray a sunnah prayer behind a fard, but you can't pray a fard prayer behind a sunnah. Okay? Unlike the Shafi'is, once again, they allow that. For example, to pray Isha behind Taraweeh. No, you can't pray Isha behind Taraweeh in the Maliki school. Okay? But the Rafiq says, I was trying to help you with the missing two when you counted 14. Barakallahu feek. I don't think that's the missing two. I don't think that's the missing two. Wallahu a'lam. Because, you know why, Brother Rafiq? Because that wouldn't, the things about followers and following, right? Those have separate rules. They would not be a fard of the every salah. If you're an individual praying salah, that's not a fard, anything to do with followers and following. So wallahu a'lam, I believe the missing two might be just another sujud and the getting up. Wallahu a'lam, I can check the shuruhat, inshallah. We'll stop there for today. نسأل الله أن يعلمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمنا إنه على ما يشاء قدير وبالإجابة جدير ونعم المولى ونعم النصير وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Allah يفتح علينا وعليكم جميعا. May Allah bless you all and give fath to all of us in our ilm studies and our practice upon the amal, and join us with the awliya and the salihin. وحسن أولئك رفيقا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Jazakallah khair.
Wa alaikum salam.
سبحان الله وإياكم.